Hi everyone, welcome to my first ever video tutorial. I originally made this effect just to get in some practice, but a lot of you ended up liking it and asking for a tutorial, so here it is. Please be lenient because it is my first time. Feel free to let me know how I can improve. With that out of the way, let's get into the logistics of the effect. I made it using the built-in URP pipeline in Unity 6, using only the particle system, with no use of VFX graph or custom shaders. It requires minimal textures, which I'll show you in a bit, but they're quite simple to make. I already set up the plane, and for that, just right-click in the Hierarchy tab, then Create 3D Object, and select Plane. Similarly, I already set up post-processing in Global Volume, but you can see a preview of the post-processing I use at the very end. With that said, you can follow along with the video, and I'll be describing what I do as we go along. Let's begin. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to do the textures real quick. They're pretty straightforward, but I'll show you how to do the ring texture. So all of them are 512 by 512, drawn in white with the transparent background. And for the ring, we have two circles. One is super low transparency, which will show up when you use HDR. The star texture is hand-drawn, but I think it's straightforward enough, so I won't be drawing it for you again. And next we can start making our materials. Go to Particles, then Standard Unlit, and duplicate this for the rest of the textures. Drag the textures into the little albedo slot under Maps, and we'll set their HDR later when we apply them to the particle systems. So here I'm just duplicating the materials and renaming them, and then I'm going to drag each of the textures into the albedo slot. Now we're going to go ahead and begin creating the particle system. So just right click and go to Effects, then Particle System, and rename it as you wish. Then we're going to reset in the transform and move on to setting up the shape module. Make it as big or small as you like. Here I'm just making it match up with my plane shape more or less. Next, I turn on the gravity module so the particles actually fall down, and then you're going to want to move up the effect in the transform so it actually falls onto the plane. I just picked 7, but you can make it higher or lower as you wish. Next, I'm setting the start speed, and then you can go ahead and set the number of particles you want. Again, as little or as many as you want. I just did 150 here. Also note you can technically do these steps more or less in any order you want. So now I finally dragged the material onto the particle system, and you're going to want to use the hard particle material and resize it to suit your preference using the start size option. Now we can set the HDR, which is my personal favorite part, and then we'll also move on to doing the color. Here I'm picking random between 2 colors. Now I'm going to set up the collision so the particles actually bounce off the plane. Now you're going to change the plane type from planes to world, or else they won't bounce off the objects in your world space, in this case our plane. Again, I'm just adjusting things like start lifetime and whatnot. I adjusted the bounce to 0.2 because I want to be pretty subtle. And now we're just going to add some aspects to make our particles look more natural, such as size over lifetime and trails. So go ahead and set the minimum vertex distance to 0 for smooth flowing trails, and lower the lifetime to make the trail shorter. Here I drag the hard particle material into the trail slot in renderer. You can adjust the width and color. I reduce the transparency and color over lifetime for the trails for a more natural fade. Okay, now we can move on to submitters. Let's start with the ripples. Go to submitters module and use the little plus sign next to the slot where it currently says none and add a submitter and set it to appear on collision. You can let it inherit color or nothing. I pick color. And you may rename the submitter and go ahead and drag your ring material onto the submitter and change the emission to 0. Add a little burst module with a little plus sign and change the count to 2. Go ahead to the render module and set the render mode to horizontal billboard so it lays flat against the ground, and now you can move on to adjustments like size over lifetime, color over lifetime to make it fade out. You can set the size as well. Again, no particular order for these things. Since that's all set, I'm going to go ahead and set the HDR on the material itself. Okay, now we can move on to the droplets. Same thing, add another submitter to the parent rain particle system and adjust the size and lifetime. Now drag your material. This one uses hard particle again. Add some gravity so they fall down like little droplets. Here I did 0.2. And then I also added size of a lifetime and adjust the emission count. Okay, now for the mist system, we're going to create a new particle system and reset it. And you're going to want to drag it into the rain particle system hierarchy. This one's shape is a box, and again, adjust it however you like. You're going to set the max particles to 10,000 and then the emission to 500. Now you can drag your soft particle material onto it and set your size. Okay, so now I set the HDR so I can see the particles better. And then you can go ahead and add size over lifetime, color over lifetime, and color it as. So this particle system has some noise as well, although it's very subtle, so feel free to make it more intense or omit it completely. With this, basically the rain particle set is finished, and we will move on to the star rain particle set. So for that, just close the drop-down list for the rain and duplicate it by pressing Ctrl D and rename it. So this one has less particles overall, so I'm going to set the emission to 50. And then you can drag the star material onto this. This one also has a different shape than the rain, so I set it to box and set the rotation to 100 degrees so that the particles bounce at an angle. Now adjust the size to make them much bigger and change the color. Now I changed the HDR for the star material. You're gonna see me adjust it throughout the rest of the video. Don't worry, just pick what you like. And then you're gonna go down the trail parameters because as you drag the star material onto this, it'll by default set the same material to your trails. So go in the renderer module and drag the hard particle back into the trail slot. Now I'm going to add some rotation over lifetime to make them more whimsical. I'm doing 180 here and negative 180. This is in degrees. And then I went down and adjusted the trail parameters to make them more to my liking, and it's almost done. After this, we're just going to change the mist color because it's not a sublimator. I changed the color to match the colors of the stars. And voila, now it's done. You can just press play and see both the particle system playing together. I'm going to go ahead and add some depth of field, but I already did the post-processing beforehand. You can adjust it however you like. Okay, so we can quickly go over how to add some lights to our stars, enable the lights module, and create a point light. Now reset it and save as a prefab by dragging it into our project folder. Now delete it from the scene hierarchy and drag the point light prefab from the projects folder to the light slot under the lights module. You can play around with the settings until you're satisfied, and that's it. I hope you have fun reaching this effect to your own liking, and feel free to tag me if you post it on Twitter. Thanks for watching, and I hope to make more tutorials in the future.